You had 100 billion chances in the ways to have avoided today, but you decided to spill my blood. You forced me into a corner and then gave me only one option. Do you know what it feels like to dig your own grave? Do you know what it feels like to have your throat slashed from ear to ear? Do you know what it feels like to be torched alive? Do you know what it feels like to be humiliated and be impaled upon on a cross and left to bleed to death for your amusement? You have never felt a single ounce of pain your whole life. Did you want to inject as much misery in our life as you can, just because you can? You had everything you wanted. Your Mercedes wasn't enough, you brats. Your golden necklaces weren't enough, you snobs. Your trust fund wasn't enough. Your vodka and cognac weren't enough. All your debaucheries weren't enough. Those weren't enough to fulfill your hedonistic needs.
Oh yeah, man. Old Lee Boyd Malvo and John Muhammad.
Williams Muhammad. Yeah.
It was something else.
John Williams was his original name, but he's converted to Islam and changed it to Muhammad.
That was it.
Like they all do.
Yeah, or something along that. They all have like a new name.
I just think like Muhammad seems to be the only name anybody picks when they convert. You know, from my personal.
I've known a few Mustafas. You know, well, I think that's another real common one. But yeah, there doesn't seem to be a whole wide range of like names they choose. But then again, it's kind of like it's not too much different than having 1,000 people named David or Luke or John. You don't see Solomon too often. That'd be
it kind of be like you have everybody in one area named Carpenter.
Yeah.
Now I get it that it could be the big symbolism thing that I just don't understand because I'm not well versed in Islam and I'm not trying to pretend that I am. I just think it's kind of notable that 90% of the folks that I know that have converted to Islam chose the name Muhammad over anything else that could possibly be there. And I don't know what else options they have.
John didn't just join Islam. He joined like a very radical racist wing of Islam called the Nation of Islam. They're the ones that killed Malcolm X.
Yeah. He wasn't Islam enough.
Now he Malcolm X started off with the Nation of Islam. But he actually went to Mecca and saw that what he had been taught in the Nation of Islam, kind of subgenre of Islam, wasn't true Islam. So he he abandoned it and went on his own path, which actually, if you look at some of his speeches before and after and some of the things he says and does, he changes drastically.
Yeah, you can tell the difference.
But you
can tell the difference in Mr. Williams, apparently, when he converted over.
Fuck yeah. It was like he somewhere in the it's between the military and the Nation of Islam, he got all fucked up. He was never like an outstanding individual. He was super excitable or whatnot. He was nothing much to really say much on. He changed his name in October 2001. Oh, and a little tidbit on the Nation of Islam one more time. The Nation of Islam's leader, Louis Farrakhan, has publicly cut off John Muhammad, and said his organization had nothing to do with his crimes and all that. They pretty much disavowed him.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah, I guess. Well, for one, he was
touch anything like that.
For one, his killings weren't, he was kind of racially equal with his killings. He killed as a matter of. I
didn't want to bring that up, but yeah, he definitely he was too equal.
Yeah, white, black, Hispanic, I think, male, female. He didn't really. It was just a matter of convenience. on who he killed and who he didn't. But he changed his name in October 2001, and after his arrest, after all the killings, which we'll get more into that, like he claimed that there was claims that he admitted he admired and modeled himself after Osama bin Laden, and was approving of the September 11th attacks. He had this whole concept of opening up like a Nation of Islam's version of an Al Qaeda camp in Canada, where like homeless kids could be trained to be like terrorists. And I mean, he did train one kid to be a terrorist.
Yeah, he did a real good job of that one.
He did okay in the military. Qualified with the rifle. He earned the expert rifleman's badge. He went to the Gulf
Bad thing
War.
I could see from his military thing was one of his commanders was a little concerned about his recruitment tactics.
Yeah. He did 16 years in the military, though. So, I mean, I guess they weren't too concerned. He went to the Gulf War with a company that dismantled Iraqi chemical warfare rockets.
Supposedly, why he got discharged was, they just his racial tone with the aggressive tactics on trying to get the African Americans in his unit converted over to Islam.
Well, that's another weird thing is like for the Nation of Islam, like you don't get a lot of Nation of Islam in the military. They're kind of opposed to it. They have like their own military. They call them, I think they call them the Fruits or something like that. The Fruits of Islam, but they Fruits of Muhammad. I can't remember exactly, but they have like their own little military thing. They kind of despise like the United States and the government and whatnot. So it's weird that he was even in the military. He shouldn't have gone according to his supposed beliefs. But his supposed beliefs, like I said, I think he did that a lot just to, for attention, I think, He wanted to be this type of guy.
I can't speak to what they were thinking on that, and, I got nothing against Nation of Islam except for those extremist groups. Of course, everybody's
the Nation of Islam is an extremist group. Islam in itself, well,
they are.
The Nation of Islam.
Like I said, the extremism, we've all got issues with, and in everything. I mean, Islam, Christianity, whatever. The extremes are always questioned. So it's nothing against Islam, just the extremes.
Yeah. I ain't going on about Islam.
Nobody coming up bombing my house just because I happen to mention the word.
Yeah, I ain't going on about Islam in itself, at least not on this episode. But right. The Nation of Islam is like it's like a hate it's like a hate group. It's like the Westboro Baptist Church and the Klan kind of got together and decided that everybody looks better in bow ties. But yeah, so he gets married. And I couldn't find a lot about that first marriage. Like it doesn't really. I couldn't find anything really about it. It just like he got married and then, well, he got divorced.
And then he got married again. That was kind of how everything I found went through as well. It was just his first marriage was a side note.
Yeah, his second marriage though, he had 3 kids with his second wife, I believe.
Yeah, so that one must have been going pretty decently.
Well, eventually she she divorced him. And then she sought and was granted a restraining order alleging abuse. Now,
he would do after he came back from the military, though. So they were kind of. She says that when he come back from the military, he was a changed man.
Yeah,
and his friends did too. Something went wrong over there. Whether it was because he got discharged and he didn't like the idea, some chemical weapons causing some, neurological disorders. There's a lot of stuff about the Gulf War thing that we all don't know about that may or may not have happened, that may or may not have caused some issues with our soldiers. And he may or may not be one of those.
Yeah. He would do like creepy shit. Like she'd be over at her friend's house and he's supposed to be at work and whatnot. And they would look out the window and they'd just see him standing out in the driveway watching them through a window. Like, he would do weird, creepy, like, controlling-ass shit throughout their marriage. So finally, when they got divorced, she got a restraining order. He was arrested on federal charges of violating the restraining order with a weapon. Like those with under federal law, those with restraining orders are prohibited from purchasing or possessing guns. She eventually got custody of all three of the children, and he decided basically he was going to take them. He had like visitation rights, and he had come to pick them up or whatever, and like as she's sitting there waiting for her kids to come back, and he doesn't show up and he doesn't call, and like
No, he was on a plane, bro. He
was already on a plane to Antigua, where he but he goes to Antigua and he meets up with Lee Boyd Malvo. Now, Malvo's kind of a sad story of himself. His mom was a piece of shit. She had him and then she left, and she would come back to pay the rent or to pack up everything because she didn't pay the rent, or to put food in the house, and then she would just leave again. He would get left with other families all the time, and only when people would talk about wanting to adopt Malvo would she be like, "No, I want my son," and then immediately lose interest in him again. She was kind of a piece of shit. Right? So John was making money in Antigua selling fake passports, fake documents, and for $3,000, she wanted to come and get. She wanted to get one.
Yeah, and this is how they met.
Exactly.
She wanted to come to the United States so bad that she's freaking willing to leave her son behind, and hey, you take care of him for a little bit.
Yeah.
And so this kid found a father figure that he never really had in Mr. Muhammad here, and it seemed like this was a match made to happen.
Well, sure. She got the papers and left Antigua for Florida using those false papers. She left her son with Muhammad, and it was like, "Oh yeah, y'all can come get me later." Well, in the meantime, Malvo gets converted, and Muhammad kind of cuts him off from his mother.
Yep, and starts to get in with a little bit of a training, raising him in the ways that he decides, and has him start playing some interesting video games. And this might be one of those times when you can actually say video games was a big cause, because he had him playing these, shoot 'em up video games to get him used to shooting at targets and to desensitize him for actually putting a bullet into a person.
Yeah, and he also made him watch The Matrix over 100 times.
Yeah. So this kid who 14 or 15, was coming up with, I think it's 15, was learning more about weapons than any 15-year-old really should know.
Yeah, I think. Look, and watching a movie over 100 times. Look, so a movie that's been one of my favorite, probably been my favorite movie since childhood, is Predator, right? The original Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger and whatnot.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, and I started watching that when I was maybe 4. And here I am 32 years later, and I might have watched that movie 50 times. And that's, I'm probably adding a dozen or so. But yeah, I might have watched that movie 50 times. I can't imagine watching one movie 100 times within the period of a year or so. And it was probably less than that.
I don't know. I don't understand what the tie for the Matrix is, other than, hey, government control, and this is what the world is. No idea. Maybe he wanted him to think that the world was fake and he was living in a simulation and nothing mattered. I've got no idea.
Well, so eventually they find out, his ex-wife finds out where her kids are. She gets her kids. And Muhammad basically tells her, you have made yourself an enemy to me. I swear, I vow revenge. Basically saying, I'm going to kill you. So, and there's a theory, and I kind of believe it, that all the killings that followed were actually, what his plan was to have all these people dying in these sniper attacks, and her just be one of them. Therefore, it wouldn't come directly back on him. So that's what I really believe that. I really believe his ultimate intent was to kill his wife, and she was just going to be one of a group.
Yeah, I think that was the plan. That they would never suspect the ex-husband if she was just a random death and a mass killing.
Yeah, yeah. And these guys, they actually, man, they went all out. They put they drilled.
Oh, I lost you.
They drilled a hole in the trunk of the car. They had it set up to where they could ride around and park somewhere, and then he could let down the back seat and crawl into the trunk, stick the rifle through the hole, and I guess the hole was big enough for the scope as well.
No, they had to pop the trunk just a little bit.
Well,
they had a slot cut in just above the lot.
Okay,
right above the license plate. They had a little slot for the rifle to set in for its basically a mount, a brace, and they popped that trunk just a little enough for the scope to be able to get its line of sight, and they'd fire off the shot and close the trunk and drive away.
Yeah, it was actually really efficient.
Yeah, it's a rolling sniper's nest.
Yeah, it wasn't the worst design I've ever heard of. I remember when it happened and they told us about that. I was like, well, that's pretty fucking impressive, to be honest.
Yeah, most killings that we have touched on and will touch on here in this series, you can see that there's little planning in the actual murder in the event that they do, other than Mr. Whitman, of course. He planned that fairly well.
And the Columbine boys.
The Columbine boys did they did a good plan. But most of them, it's a few minutes, if that, in the planning of the murder, and everything else is in the planning of how do I make sure my attention stays. This is one of the few where most of the planning went into the actual act of committing the crimes, and they planned it fairly damn well.
Yeah, they ended up killing 17 total. There were 10 during the actual sniper attacks, and then there were 7 in kind of some warm-up shootings they did.
Yeah, and this wasn't all just in the D.C. area. These guys traveled the country, and it started out. It started out with a friend of his ex-wife that had actually helped encourage her to get the divorce, all the way up in Washington, way on the other side of the damn country.
Yeah.
This was the kid's little. His trial was sent to go and actually. To kill wasn't Issa Nichols, and unfortunately, her niece was home and opened the door, and she's the one that got shot by Malvo. And right there in the door, and he took off running. That was his first Cook. Yeah,
and her aunt was the one they were looking for. It was Issa Nichols. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one that was the target, but the niece opened the door, and the niece is the one that got shot. And then he took off, and well, that was his first killing, and he had proved his worth. And all right, so let's get on with this. And then they moved all the way down to Arizona.
Yep.
Working their way back to the East Coast here and shot some guy on a freaking golf course.
Yeah, in Tucson. Yeah.
Yeah.
They sniped him long range.
Yeah, and then they made it to Louisiana. Shot a dude, close range with that was set up. The guy, Malvo went out and slashed the guy's tire so that the guy would have to stop and fix his car before he could go anywhere. Come up to him and shot him in the neck, and the guy played dead while Malvo took his freaking wallet so they could, fund their little spree. And then he went in and fucking the guy lived.
Yeah, he was only in the hospital an hour.
Yeah, got sewed up, and then made the report that somebody had shot him, and nobody knew who it was at the time. And the interesting thing is that after this kid's been sitting in jail for a little bit, he actually sent a letter of apology to this guy. But we'll get to that here in a little bit.
Yeah.
Then they went to Maryland, and this is where it really started to kick off. Shot a dude while he was locking up his restaurant. Paul LaRufa took his laptop. This guy survived, but he was shot 6 times. But they stole his laptop and his money. Then they went over to some liquor store in Silver Springs, shot him in the back. They're supposed to have stole some money from his guys. Well, they were trying to fund and make enough money to be able to do this stuff. So they were doing some
they had the
random stuff.
bankroll. And actually, Malvo was like a pretty good shoplifter. He actually kind of made a living on it for a little while. And
yeah, there was a couple places that they found his prints for later and tied it to it that he has actually been going around. And he actually got arrested once and was charged for being an illegal migrant.
He shoplifted a rifle.
Yeah, stole the rifle that he's getting into this with. I mean, these guys, they were petty criminals up to this point, but it was all leading to something. They had a plan, and this was part of it, apparently.
Yeah. It was kind of like a fundraiser for it. It went to Alabama, Georgia.
Yeah, and none of these connections were made until afterwards.
And there still may be some out there. Shooting. There could be others out there that never got attributed to it.
Yeah, because the evidence just didn't link up. Using a different weapon. And they didn't have any kind of an actual a set way they were doing things. So it was kind of hard to tie all these things together. There was no linking, information to them all. One guy was shot in the back, one guy shot from a distance. They were in different states. You can't tie all this together yet. But then, the morning of October 2nd, well, it was the afternoon, the evening of October 2nd, they took a first shot to get started on this, and he shot through a glass window of a Michael's craft store and apparently didn't account for which direction the bullet was going to deflect when it went through the glass, so nobody got hit.
It almost hit his cashier.
But like she was the target, but it deflected and missed, and no alarms were raised. They figured it was just a random shot, from somebody miles away that just missed their target, and the bullet just traveled wherever, and they were like, oh, whatever.
These things happen.
Yeah, and it's been known to, but then an hour later, in the parking lot of Shoppers Food Warehouse over in Wheaton, James Martin, was killed, and then they realized, wait a minute, something's going on.
You ever been to a Shoppers Food Warehouse?
No, I have not.
Me either. It sounds like...
Didn't even know what it was.
It sounds kind of like a nightmare.
I'm thinking Costco-ish, but that's just me, thinking from just the name.
I'm thinking Costco, but with like cobwebs, like Costco and roses.
Oh God. With the adjacent Radio Shack. Yeah, I've got no idea. But the following morning, 4 people were shot dead in a matter of hours, just a couple of hours. And, so somebody knew what the heck was going on there. What was it? James Buchanan was shot while he was mowing the grass.
At a mall.
A taxi cab was pumping gas station. And then a babysitter sitting outside of a shopping center. She'd gotten off a bus and was reading a book, and she got hit.
That'll teach her to fucking read.
Right. Fuck education. Should have known better.
Yeah. That's what you get for minding your own business.
A woman vacuuming her car at a gas station. I mean, these were not nearby. These were all over town. They were not in the same block or anything.
See, when this was happening, the first one I remember hearing about was the one at the gas station, because they had the news vans out there, and you could see they had like a tarp over the body and whatnot. Like, it was that was the first one I remember happening, and then after that, all hell broke loose, man.
After a couple of days, they actually have fuel stations where they put tarps up over the aprons so that you can't see the people filling their cars up from outside the fuel station. That's how bad it was. People were hiding behind their cars just to get gas, and refused to. But they were moving around. They wouldn't stay still. I mean, good ideas. Make
Yeah,
yourself less of a
I
target.
remember. I think it was either ABC 11 or WRL 5 here in North Carolina was like talking about the possibility of them traveling south into North Carolina. Which, I mean, we're only a few hours away from one of their shoots. They traveled through North Carolina, so I mean, it was when they went from Georgia. So yeah, it wasn't out of, but they were fear mongering like hell with it. Like they were like, oh, here's how to keep yourself safe at the pump, and when you're try to get as close to the door as possible when you're parking at the grocery store, and it's like, yeah.
There was a lot of fear mongering about this. It was all over the daggone news. I mean, this event lasted for 3.5 weeks.
And and we're still in kind of like the aftermath of the post 9/11 with the you got the shoe bomber, and you had anthrax and all that. So all this was happening during that time. There were a lot of people who were speculating that it was Al Qaeda or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, but all the reports that come in, people were calling in different stuff. I mean, from all over the place. And one of these tips actually had these folks looking for a big white box truck because somebody seen one leaving the scene.
Yeah, everybody was looking for white vans and white box trucks.
Yeah, and these guys were running around in a beat up old Chevy Capri.
Yep. And they actually had got a call about that. Like, there were so many calls coming in, and they had got a call about a Chevy Capri. And,
and they even walked up on him while he was sleeping under an overpass somewhere, and the tags came up from one place and the license was run to another, and they let him go because none of the reports had actually mentioned that that was the particular thing, and it didn't quite match up, so they let him go.
Yeah, there's signs, there's hints that Malvo started trying to kind of throw a monkey wrench in the works. He was leaving things here and there. He was doing he was doing little things. There's arguments that he was trying to get caught, that he was trying to be stopped, because he couldn't tell. If he'd have told John Muhammad he didn't want to do it no more, we kind of know what would have happened to him. So he was. There's a lot of arguments that he was trying to stop it, that he was leaving little clues here and there. I don't know. I feel like if he really was trying to stop it and he was leaving little clues here and there, he also had access to guns, and they slept in the same car. I'm just saying, he could have got out of it, but I don't know. I'm not labeling.
Yeah, it got to a point. It got to a point where they actually started leaving clues behind to the police.
Yeah, the tarot cards.
Ransom demands.
Well, Muhammad wanted the notoriety. He wanted the attention. They started making threats on children, kind of like the Zodiac killer with bus stops and shit.
Yeah, saying that your children are not safe today or anywhere, something along those lines.
Yeah. So after that specific threat against children, like a lot of schools like canceled all their field trips and their like outdoor baseball games and shit. Yeah, some places like in Virginia, they just closed school. Also there was a movie, Phone Booth. There was a sniper involved in it, and that's actually a pretty decent movie. But because of everything that was going on, they actually delayed the release of it because it was too fresh, I guess. They delayed it almost like 6 months. Yeah, everybody went crazy. And they went on, I mean, they killed at the end of it, I believe it was 17 total. Yeah. And they injured 10. Yeah.
There was a spree, October 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th that, they killed a handful of people while they were shooting, while they were filling up the gas, which made that whole panic at the gas station. That's what led to the covering of the fuel pumps and all this other stuff that was going on. And then they shot somebody outside of a Home Depot, and they got a tip at this point. Now, what they thought was a very good lead, but unfortunately, they found out that the witness was actually inside at the time and was telling a story.
Oh, yeah, at the Home Depot.
Yeah. So yeah, don't give false information, folks. Or the same thing might happen to you.
Yeah, they
This guy
eventually
was
they
convicted of interfering with an investigation.
Yeah, they took a break at this point too. They kind of chilled out for like 5 days, and then
Yep, they
yep,
did.
on October 19th at 8, they shot Jeffrey Hopper at a parking lot near a steakhouse. Poor guy, just trying to get a decent steak. I bet his steak was probably overcooked too. That'd be my luck. I go into a place and order an overpriced steak, and I want it medium rare, and it comes out like medium well. Yeah, that's what would happen. And then I'd go out and fucking get shot. On this one,
This is the one where they actually found the letter that was actually
4-page
demanding the
letter.
ransom and all that crap that was in the woods in the direction where they fired this shot. This is
Yep.
at the point where they actually started getting out of the car and setting up a position for the spotter and then the sniper and stuff. So they changed their MO a little bit.
Yeah, they're starting to get a little bit ballsy with it, because they've gotten away with so many up to this point, right?
Yeah, they had, and then all these bad tips led to a couple of men getting arrested with a white
Yeah,
van.
they got the dirty finger.
Yeah, they did. This only hurt for a little while. I promise I'll only put 2 fingers in.
Yeah, they administered cavity searches to both of them and were remanded into federal custody.
Yeah, and unfortunately,
And then they
were
got deported.
illegal hitters. They got deported. Yeah. So yeah, thanks guys. These guys didn't have jack shit to do with it, and then now they get deported out of making their living.
Yeah. What if it was actually them? And after they deported them, they realized, oh fuck, well, we got to do something. Somebody's got to take the hit.
And then right after that, on the 23rd, they found the ballistics information that actually linked the Tacoma, Washington shooting with the Beltway, these guys here. So they started having a link. They found a tree stump that they were using for target practice. So they now had, projectiles that they could link to the same projectiles that they were recovering from these shootings. So they knew it was the same person, which started to give them an idea of who it may be, especially when one of his friends called in to the FBI and said, yeah, I think I know who this is. Yeah. And so now they had a name, the names of the people, and then they started getting the information that it might actually be this blue Capri instead of the white van.
Yeah. They've got 2 911 calls from people at the rest stop. So they pulled up at the rest stop at 3:15 a.m. on October 24th, and they were found sleeping in their car off Interstate 70 near Myersville, Maryland. And they picked them up on federal weapons charges. The police, Montgomery County Police Chief Moose, it said, you have indicated that you want us to do and say certain things. You have asked us to say we have caught the sniper like a duck in a noose. We understand that hearing us say this is important to you. He asked the media to carry the message accurately and often. And I don't know what the deal is with this. It had something to do with like Cherokee fables or like myths or something. But I mean, like Muhammad said a bunch of weird shit in his letters. Call me God, code, call me God. And it's like, why would you say something in code and then say code? He did a lot of weird shit. Mr. Policeman.
Yeah, that was so that the police could talk to him through the media and say what they needed to say to him to make arrangements or whatever. And the code word was, this guy wants us to call me God. And then they were supposed to say something after that, that being their way to communicate without the media actually picking up on it and stuff like that. That was where I picked that up at.
Yeah, it was just fucking. It seemed like a whole bunch of extra steps for nothing.
Yeah,
but yeah, they got him. They started processing the vehicle, and it didn't take long for them. They there's a truck driver that was like just trying to leave, and his tractor trailer got commandeered by troopers who used the truck to block off the exit. So yeah, they
Yeah.
blocked him off. They came in there. They took him. They found his stolen Bushmaster 223 caliber gun and a bipod. The ballistics linked the rifle to 11 of the 14 shootings, including the one in which no one was hurt. The fucking, what was it, Michaels or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They were able to get a good projectile to match up on that. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, just a side note, that 223 caliber Bushmaster rifle is a hunting rifle, bolt action. You know, it has a little 4-round magazine in it. Uses the exact same round that the big bad AR-15 uses that everybody's trying to ban now.
Yeah. So basically, long story short, with the trial, Muhammad got executed. They set an execution date, and he died by lethal injection on November 10th, 2009. When asked if he had any last, when asked if he had any last words, he made no reply. Malvo was sentenced to like 25 life sentences or some shit like that.
In 2 different states, concurrent.
Yeah. Now,
so
Virginia
he would have to
passed
serve
a
all
law.
of them in one and then serve the others.
Yeah. Virginia passed a law, though, that because of his age, he's actually eligible for parole after 20 years. So this year he becomes eligible for parole. But that's just Virginia. So even if he gets paroled in Virginia, he's still got to deal with the Maryland charges and whatnot. You know?
Maryland is saying that they have to retry him or resentence him because of the Supreme Court holding up something along for the, what is it, the Eighth Amendment, I think it is. Yeah, the one about due process and harsh penalties and stuff. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but somehow they said that you can't give a youth, someone under 18, life sentences without parole unless there is absolute malice or some weird term I can't remember.
And we talked about this in the Brenda Spencer case.
Yeah.
Like there's someone who's that young, really, I mean, can, like I said, at some point he had guns, he could have ended it at any time. On the other hand, he was still a child, and he, like I said, he could have stopped at any time, but he was also being kind of controlled by Muhammad. I think it's a little bit of both on it, because I do think that he maybe he deserves a little bit of like leniency on that, but there are a lot of people that lost their lives at his hand.
Yeah, very much so, and it was all cold-blooded and and thought about and executed in a precise way. This wasn't just, hey kid, come over here and this is going to be fun.
Lee Malvo was made into a weapon by John Muhammad.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, while Malvo was the one actually pulling the trigger and sighting the gun, it was all Muhammad, that was doing it.
Yep.
But like I said, I don't know if he should do the rest of his life locked up. I don't know. He could also, he does display some like psychopathic tendencies. But how would you?
In his own words, he now looks back and sees himself as a monster. From his own words, from the last interview that I saw while he was, in jail, he shows remorse, and he knows that his actions were monstrous, and he sees himself as a monster at this time. So I'm not sure if he's quite ready to come out. But, deserving of some type of, help in the mental area, give him some counseling and some therapy sessions, maybe some medications. We might be able to get this kid some sort of life in his adulthood. But I would probably say that if anything comes out of it, it would be monitored life outside. Like, he's got to, he'd be having to wear the bracelet and all that good stuff. I mean, I don't know if you would ever trust somebody that's done this to walk around free in the world.
Yeah, it'd be kind of that'd be a hard call.
Yeah, this wasn't just one murder or something like that, or let's just go in and shoot up a place. This was weeks long. I mean, weeks long issues all across the country, multiple incidents. He had plenty of time to think about it and come to the conclusion that it's the wrong idea and to get away. He wasn't held against his will. So you got to take all of that stuff into account. I just don't know what to think about it myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I had to step away there for a second. But yeah, it's a rough one, man. Like, I don't know where exactly I fall on it. I don't think that he should get out right away, but maybe should he get out later in life? Maybe have a chance. Yeah, I think it's possible he should have a chance. But that brings us to the end of the Beltway sniper case. We weren't going to do as much as we did about it, but there's just too much to to do it half-assed,
Yeah, I mean, this turned out to be a lot more interesting than what I had remembered from just the news sources and living through it. I mean, I wasn't there, but
Yeah, the angle with it being all about his wife, basically, I had no idea how much he fucking hated her.
Yeah, I mean, I figured it was just two guys got pissed off and started running around shooting people for the hell of it, and this turns out that it was much deeper than that, and turned out to be a lot more interesting of a story.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of interesting stories, let's move on to the who I'd like to nominate for the award of Loser of the Century. Dry Dick Cho, also known as Swung Hui. I heard it pronounced so many different ways, but
Song Hee, I think. But yeah, I don't even get me started the line. It's a Korean name. We're dumb Americans. We can't pronounce that shit.
Yeah, old never fucked Cho. So he was born in '84. So he was actually 2 years older than me. He was always a fucking weird kid. This is one of those times where they're like, from the time of childhood on, everybody's like, yeah, something's wrong with this kid. Like, and then when he shot up the Virginia Tech, everybody was like, yeah, that adds up. Like, this dude.
Yeah, he's weird. He's one that if you saw him in your class, you'd be like, yeah, this guy's going to be voted most likely to kill somebody.
Yeah, or himself. He just sucked. The
kid run around in school, in college, not just, in high school and college with a supermodel girlfriend that lived in space named Jelly. Imaginary girlfriend. And he was open about it, at least once he got drunk.
Yeah. He would go to, he would go to, like, one of his friends or whatever, or people that were trying to be his friend, they took him, like, this house party or something. And he just sits on the floor, pulls out a knife, and starts stabbing the carpet.
Yeah, want to see something cool?
Well, he didn't even say anything. That was his only communication. Now, he was diagnosed as a child, I think, with selective mutism and, like, a severe anxiety disorder. Like, when he was a kid...
that's the problem. He was not diagnosed as a child. He wasn't diagnosed with selective mutism until he was almost a teenager.
Yeah, in middle school. You're still a child. Okay, not early childhood, but, he was still a kid. But, yeah, he was diagnosed with... his parents tried to pray all his problems away. That's a big part of the problem right there. Look, listeners, if you have kids and they're exhibiting mental problems, Jesus is not the goddamn answer, all right? Get help. Because they tried to solve so many of his problems through getting him involved. Oh, he's having problems associating with people. Let's take him to church. Then they'd get him involved in, like, all these church activities. So they're like, no, they should have done one thing, and that's make sure he stayed medicated. Make sure he kept up with treatment. And, like, back him up with treatment better than what they fucking did. Most of their idea of treatment was praying it off. And that doesn't fucking work. Like, never. And, yeah. But yeah, they were super religious. They did seem to kind of try a little bit, but most of it was through the support of his school. He didn't really get any support on his mental health from his parents except for, like, religious shit.
Yeah, for the
And so,
most part, they just thought he was an introvert and just, a very shy kid that didn't like to talk
well,
until somebody did look at it.
when people would come to the house, he would freeze like a deer in headlights. He would just freeze up. Um, there's something wrong. That's not being an introvert. That's something that this person has a negative reaction to people. You know, it's like that seahorse in Finding Nemo that's H2O intolerant.
Yeah, but the counselor that realized this while he was in high school went and talked to his parents, and he was like, "Does he actually talk?" And they were like, "Yeah, he talks to his sister all the time." And that was really the only person he would actually open up and have conversations with was his sister.
Yeah,
But everybody else, it was always in a whisper, the bare minimum of words needed to answer a question. The only time he actually found communication, something he could actually do, was when they put him into an art class and, let him use art as expression.
yeah, and then he would start actually making eye contact. That was pretty much
Yeah.
it. But he was just a weird kid from the get go.
Yeah,
And
he got into a poem, English class, and was starting to write some pretty deep and dark poems and stuff, and was asked to change it or to drop out of the class, and he didn't like that. He entered in. He sent some of his works, took it to the art instructor of the college, and she told him, "Look, you've got something here, but yeah, I would recommend instead of you trying to jump right into having a career with this, that you do the correct thing, and take some classes, learn a little bit more nuance about the English language, all this other good stuff." And he actually tried that. He dropped his engineering classes and went into English lit, and well, it didn't work out too well. He was
yeah, he wanted to be a writer.
yeah, his grades were bad. He really couldn't get a hang on it, and none of his stuff was getting the teacher's attentions. He got into which class was that? That for the oh, he went for into the arts and got with some the theatrical group. I can't remember what the heck that's called in school anymore. It's been too long. But they were writing plays and other stuff like that. And his plays that he come up with were freaking dark and evil, man. Like so
Yeah, and
always depression.
they also weren't very good.
No, they sucked.
And
But
yeah,
But yeah, there's the anti-hero was always either oppressed and having something taken away from him, or he was oppressed and somebody tried to stop him from getting something. To the point where one of them was the teacher came in to take his winnings from a slot at the casino for a class trip. This was the play. They went to a class trip to a casino. The students won, and then the teacher comes over there and says, "No, these freaking kids, they pushed me away when I won," and all that good stuff. So they got in a fight, and then ended with the teacher killing the kid. That was the play, not actual events. So I mean,
yeah,
that was the kind of mindset this guy had.
yeah, and he was already like, and when he wasn't writing violent and obscene poetry, he was like taking like upskirt photographs of girls under their desk with a cell phone and shit. Anytime he tried to like come on to a girl, he did like weird shit. He walked into this one girl's like dorm room or whatnot, just kind of out of nowhere, and like said, "Hi, I'm question mark." And it was like, so she ended up calling the cops, and then another girl he went to go see. He tried to like, he was talking to her online or something like that, and like the police came to investigate his shit online, and like he had been talking about suicide and killing people, and I mean he had a really he sucked a couple like, "Hey baby, my name's question mark. You want to go back to my place? I don't know, talk about suicide." Like he
Yeah, the developing new personalities to fragment himself into his different ideals is
yeah.
definitely a sign of some mental instability there. When you have to rename yourself so that you can act a certain way, And this is, something that I had to deal with myself back when I got out of jail, for being a stupid kid myself. So I understand this, and I know this to
I
be
understand being
something that
awkward. I mean, I'm still kind of socially awkward,
now, I
but
understand the point of introducing yourself as a completely different person because you're not in the frame to be the person you should be.
right, I understand that as well. I understand that as well. But
Um,
he would do weird shit. He'd go over to he went to this one girl's like room, went to her door and wrote a line from Romeo and Juliet, and yeah, I mean it was campus police kind of warned him away from doing any contact pretty much with this girl. He sent an email message to her later on saying, "Well, I might as well kill myself now." And they ended up getting in touch with Cho's father. Cho's father and this guy was named Coach and Coke. I don't know, but they both contacted the authorities, and they came to the dorm and took him to New River Valley Community Services Board, basically like a mental health place in Blacksburg. And
Sheriff Carleon St. Albans.
yeah, something like that.
But they found him. He is mentally ill. That does not present an imminent danger to himself or others.
Boy,
Is
were they wrong.
not substantially unable to care for himself as a result of mental illness, and he does not require involuntary hospitalization.
Well, he denied Cho's suicidal ideation. He doesn't acknowledge any symptoms of like a thought disorder. The physician noted his insight and judgment are normal. And it's like, boy, this guy missed the mark.
Didn't he, though? I mean, it's almost, did you even bother to go into the room with this kid?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's just say, folks, if anybody ever walks up to you and you know their name to be John and they introduce themselves as Jack, you might want to take notice.
Yeah, well, I mean, some people change their names, kind of like as taking on a new identity, and it happens. It happens a lot. In his case, it is different than that. It wasn't like somebody who's getting dead named or whatever.
I ain't saying that, that person is automatically a danger. I'm just saying pay attention because you might just be dealing with a
his was a
psychopath.
little bit different with his flat affect, and he was always wearing hats and sunglasses to try and like hide and blend in. But since he was the only guy in class with hat and sunglasses,
Yeah, this is his way of saying there's something about me that I'm not letting you know, and you can't find it. That is that is your basic person's way of hiding their true intent from everybody else. I get some folks are just weird and they dress strange, but when everybody else is running around in normal clothing and you see this guy coming up and he's got a hoodie and a ball cap and dark glasses and he keeps looking at the floor and don't make eye contact and he's all closed up, his arms are close together. That's the guy you want to be looking out for.
Yeah, in 2006, his mother was becoming increasingly concerned about his classwork and his asocial behavior. And so she sought help for him from various churches in Northern Virginia. According to Dong Lee, he minister of a Presbyterian church in Washington, in Woodbridge. His mother had come to him to that church to seek help for Cho. She added, the minister, Lee, added that his problem needed to be solved by spiritual power because we were helping several people like him. They were helping nobody like him. They can't help people like him. Members of Lee's church even told Cho's mother they had demonic power and needed deliverance. But before the church could meet with the family, however, Cho returned to school to start his senior year at Virginia Tech. And me personally, I think that he should have, the church should have got on that a little bit quicker because we all know that the solution would have been laying hands on him and praying, and then he'd have been fine. None of these people in Virginia Tech would have died. Yeah, they would have cast out that demon, and demons are like, in my understanding of like demonology and possessions, they usually like say things and talk, but he had like a demon that didn't. his demon was just a deaf mute, like Helen Keller.
Yeah, when he finally did open up and, onto these videos that he wound up mailing to the news service, the
Yeah, a
day of.
multimedia manifesto. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he finally opened his mouth after, so many years of being quiet, and the only thing that come out was a bunch of dribble. This guy was a freaking idiot. I mean, nothing he said made any kind of fucking sense in any regards to anything of his life. Do you know what it feels like to be burned? Do you know what it feels like to have everything taken? What the
Yeah.
hell was taken from this kid? Who the hell set him on fire? This kid doesn't know jack shit about that, but he's, spitting it out like it's part of his life.
Oh, the happiness I could have had mingling among you hedonists, being counted as one of you, only if you didn't fuck the living shit out of me. You could have been great. I could have been great. Ask yourself what you did to me to have made me clean the slate.
Yeah.
Only if you could be the victim of your reprehensible and wicked crimes, you Christian Nazis, you would have brute restrained your animal urges to fuck me. You could be home right now eating your fucking caviar and your fucking cognac. Because when I eat cognac, I prefer to have caviar, Had you not grievously raped my soul, all the shit you've given me, right back at you with hollow points. Don't you wish you'd finished me off when you had the chance? Don't you wish you'd killed me? You had a billion chances and ways to have avoided today, but you decided to spill my blood, which that's not true. You forced me into a corner and gave me only one option. The decision was yours. Now you have blood on your hands that will never wash off, you apostles of sin. So, on one hand, he's complaining that he wasn't counted as one of these hedonists. And then he calls them apostles of sin. Like, and nobody tried to kill him. I don't understand. I even looked like, hold on, maybe there's something I missed. I went and looked back over his whole thing, and no, there was not one time when somebody was trying to kill him, nor somebody had the chance to finish him off.
It's the fact that everybody that was in any of these interviews was always like they were trying to befriend him in every way possible, to include him in the going-ons around campus, and he was just, I guess being so many years of being, unable to communicate led to this particular situation to where he didn't know how to communicate when the time came where people were actually trying to include him instead of shunning him off like you're the weird kid, we're just not going to talk to you. He got into a spot where people were actually trying to, and you don't know how to act like that, I guess, when the rest of your life has been completely shut off.
Yeah.
And the doctor completely missing the mark about his problem is the only who might even come close to having anything about his diatribe about somebody shutting him off and leaving him out, and that doctor did say, yeah, there ain't no problem, screw you, get back out there. But other than that, what the hell was his problem?
Yeah, I mean, he was just a loser.
Pretty damn much. I mean, yeah, he had an issue that wasn't seen, and he had to grow up with it, which caused some problems. But, okay, you're not the best at communicating. Where do we go from that to I want to kill everybody?
Well,
that's a hell of a leap.
Yeah, and when I sat here and read his whole fucking all the text of the manifesto this morning, and it's just like this weird diatribe where he like compares himself to Jesus and Moses. I die like Jesus Christ, but then he refers to Christians as Nazis. And it's he doesn't really have. I think what we come down to is he didn't have a reason. He just wanted to do it. It seems like he felt like this is the only way I'll ever be anything. I'll ever be anybody. The only way anybody will ever know me. And there's things he says further on in his. He was kind of hoping that it would give him a following of sorts. To you sadistic snobs, I may be nothing but a piece of dog shit. You have vandalized my heart, raped my soul, and torched my conscience again and again. You thought it was one pathetic void life that you were extinguishing. Thanks to you, I die, like Jesus Christ, to inspire generations of weak and defenseless people, my brothers, sisters, and children, that you fuck. Like Moses, I spread the sea and lead my people, the weak, defenseless, and innocent children of all ages that you fucked and will always try to fuck, to eternal freedom. Thanks to you sinners, you spillers of blood, I set the example of the century for my children to follow. That to me, that little quote right there is probably the closest we come to like an actual motive. Yeah, that's that. So in on February 9th of 2007, he bought his first handgun. He bought it legally. He was able to pass all the background checks, even though he has like a history of mental illness and what have you. He was able to complete both handgun, all his handgun things. He bought a bunch of hollow point bullets, which resulted in more tissue damage than the full metal jacket bullets. Then he sent off his manifesto to NBC with he had a photograph of the bullets that he used with the caption, "All the shit you've given me, right back at you with hollow points." He wrote a note in his room which he criticized rich kids and their debauchery and deceitful charlatans. He continued by saying, "You caused me to do this." Early on, the news was like, "Oh, this is all because of this one girl," and that she rejected him. But there's really no evidence.
No,
that
this definitely goes on for. This was years in the making.
Yeah,
this kid was pretty much born to do this,
and literally nothing else. So at 7:15 on April 16th, 07, he killed the girl Emily, the first, and the one that.
Well, he did a trial run a few days before.
Well,
where he called in some bomb threats to some of the halls and went around and he chained the doors and just watched the reaction.
He postponed the attack several times. He went to the gun range like around about 3 times before the shooting. I mean, he was amping up for it. But yeah, he got there. He killed Emily Hilscher and Ryan Clark on the 4th floor of the dormitory. And then he goes back to his room to rearm himself, change his clothes and whatnot, mails that package to NBC News, and then goes back over across the campus to Norris Hall. And within 9 minutes, he shot dozens of people, killing 30 of them.
He chained the doors shut and taped bomb threats to the doors. If the door opens, the bomb will explode.
To buy himself some time.
And then he walked through the halls, peeking into the classrooms. Before he shot anybody, he was just walking the halls, looking into the different classrooms as if he was just a lost student trying to find his class, which was weird at that point because, we're late in the semester. You should already know where your class is. But he was looking to see which classrooms had the most people and which ones would be easier to get an angle on. And then, he got down to, it was room 211, I think. And he started shooting people. And pretty much all he did was just walk room to room and just shoot random people.
Yeah, he committed suicide in room 211.
He went back. He went back and forth. I mean, he went into the same room several times. There was one room where the people had blocked it off. He shot through the door while the one guy was holding the door shut with a desk and himself. Joe shot through the door a couple of times, actually shot this guy 3 times when a 4th was in his hand. But the other kids were able to jump out of the 2nd floor window while this was happening. So that guy saved a bunch of people's lives potentially. All they had was some leg injuries from dropping down 2 floors. But then, the police made their entrance to the building and started coming around. And as soon as they knocked on the freaking door of the 2nd floor, he shot himself.
Pretty much. Once they breached the building and the gunshot, the gunshot and the wound to his head, destroyed his face so much that it was several hours before they were able to, identify him.
Yeah, I mean, this kid built up all of this shit to lock the doors and just go randomly shooting into the classes.
28 of the victims were shot in the head. So 28 headshots. 33 deaths, including him. 23 injured. 17 by gunfire. Where were the other ones? If 17 were gunfire, how did he injure the rest? That was
the kids jumping out of the floor, twisting ankles, breaking legs, some splinters.
Okay. Yeah, I guess you can attribute those to him as well. Well, why was he jumping out? So yeah, I guess you could say he was responsible for those as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you got a choice of jumping out of a second floor window or opening the door into a handgun, I'm choosing the window.
Yeah, I mean, your chances. Well, I don't know. Depends on how good this guy. But after seeing him take, fucking all
you breaking up there.
Headshot, all these headshot. I'd think I'd take the window too. Now, if this guy's just kind of firing randomly, if he's got like a machine gun, and chances are I'll just get winged. I might not jump out a window.
Yeah, this guy actually practiced. I mean, like I said, there was nothing very special about the shooting itself. It was horrible, and a lot of people got, unfortunately lost their lives. But, the shooting itself was nowhere near as interesting as the story of the kid that did it. And the story of the kid that did it wound up pointing to just a lowly, what most people would call a loser.
Yeah, I mean,
nothing special about this guy whatsoever. He just was weird.
Yeah, he was just born fucked up. Like I said, can you blame all that on him? I don't know, but he killed fucking 30 people. Fuck him.
This was one of the most deadly shootings that we have had.
It is for a long time. It was the deadliest that we had. And
this was done with a handgun.
And it is still the deadliest school shooting, I believe, unless that's been changed in the past few days. Who knows? But yeah, let's see. I had the numbers and how many rounds he had fired, but I've lost them. I don't know where they were. But yeah, he did all. He was pretty effective, and it was like the only thing he was ever good at. Was the fucked up thing. The only thing he really succeeded at was this. And, I mean, like...
Now, an interesting thing, because, this is all going to be leading up. All these stories are leading up to a larger conversation. And one point that needs to be made in this is that current events right now are talking about limiting, magazine capacities and stuff like that so that, shootings like this can't happen.
Well, that would be irrelevant in this case.
Yeah, that's kind of the point I want to make here is that they want to limit it to a 10-round magazine capacity for handguns. Well, this kid used 5 10-round magazines. So that kind of thing wouldn't even touch a shooting of this magnitude because he used 10-round magazines. It's too easy to change a magazine. So limiting what you can carry in a magazine isn't going to change anything because it takes 2 seconds to change a magazine.
Yeah. And like his case, if anything with the like gun violence laws and all that shit, his case is a prime example of why I think mental health, should be considered a major factor in whether or not you're allowed to possess firearms.
Absolutely. I fully agree in that. Even being on the advocate side that I am, I fully agree that background checks and mental health checks should be part of gun ownership and should be a constant thing, like a yearly thing to recertify to carry. I agree with that. Even though I fully agree that, that whole right should not be infringed, but this doesn't infringe it, just make sure that you're capable of doing so.
Well,
doesn't get way.
If I get shot sitting at a cafeteria or something, it's not my right being infringed to own a gun because I can no longer own a gun once I have been shot and killed.
Well, it's worse than that. Your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Your basic rights have just been violated. And
exactly.
That's where I stand at. Is you have the right to do whatever the hell you want to in this country until your exercise of your rights interfere with the rights of another.
Yeah. And but we'll get all this into our main episode, folks. We're at an hour and 8 minutes of just chat time. So, woohoo!
Yeah,
We
definitely
actually-
tune in later. You're definitely not going to want to miss the main episode that this is leading up to, and check out the Patreon, and pretty soon the past history of Spotify and all that good stuff. Everywhere you find your favorite podcast will actually have all of these little mini episodes leading up to it. You're going to want to check them all out.
Oh yeah. These will actually. I'll make sure these will all be released before we ever get to that episode. I really don't know how many of these we're going to go through because we still got to get through a lot.
Unfortunately, there's a lot to cover in this.
Yeah, and we have skipped
aspect of
a
our lives.
lot. We have skipped a lot of them. But we're just trying to hit on the main ones that have made like a huge cultural impact, and the ones that stand out as specific styles of rampage killings. As kind of like molds for ones that followed, and this is definitely one of those. He was obsessed with Columbine. Like when Columbine happened, he got super obsessed with it. He even had wrote something in an English paper about wanting to recreate Columbine, wanting to do it again. He excelled at that. He actually surpassed them by far with one just by himself.
It was Eric. It was his name, wasn't it?
Which one? There's Eric and Dylan.
Eric. Yeah, that one. The mastermind, basically.
Yeah, that was Eric.
Yeah, that's the one that Cho actually was fond of the most, which was probably your biggest clue that hey, we need to pay attention to this kid.
Yeah, he would have been. He would have fit right in with them. I mean, had he been in Columbine High School at the time, he would have been the third shooter.
Probably so.
Fuck yeah.
But yeah, the biggest takeaway from this is definitely the mental health issue. We definitely need to pay more attention to that, because if this kid would have been picked up way earlier in his life and diagnosed with his selective mutism, we could have probably done something while he was still a child in development, and found the key to unlock himself. But even afterwards, when we realized that it's too late for that, and we were finding other ways for him to express himself, what we found that he was expressing was deeply concerning, and should have had much more attention paid to it.
If you're having mental health problems, don't wait for them to get better. They don't. And don't expect just prayer to take it away. Like if you have faith and you believe in God and you want to pray about it, that's fine. But just know that you need something else, because that alone ain't going to do shit but make you feel better. It ain't going to fix the mental health problem. It ain't going to cause a root. And all, just thinking, oh, well, he's depressed, he'll get over it. Don't. You see somebody in your family or a loved one that is starting to really concern you, do something about it. Don't just go talk to a minister. Go do something about it. There are things sure, we don't have all the mental health access in this country that we should, but there is mental health access, and it is getting better. And due partially to things like this happening, people are starting to wake up to, oh, fuck. We gotta start taking care of people's fucking mental health a little bit.
Yeah, this is the first one that we actually touched on that really focuses on that mental health being the main issue. Now, the Columbine kids, they did have some flags that should have been paid attention to a little bit more, but they hit it so well that it was really difficult to find out until afterwards. But this one really does point to the mental health issue. Now everything that we've gone over so far shows that it's a multifaceted problem, and like I said, we're definitely going to get back into that during the main episode much more in depth. But we're showing here that the whole issue is a multifaceted problem, and one particular piece of legislation or one solution is definitely not going to solve this issue anytime soon.
Yeah, and with that positive note, we're, like I said, you can find us on Spotify, Patreon, Acast. We're about to be on YouTube. We already got one up on YouTube, but we're getting more on YouTube.
These are going to be coming up on YouTube for if you folks really like to have a little videos finding you down the rabbit hole. Pop onto this and see where the rabbit hole takes you. You never know.
Yeah, and we're on Audible, Amazon Music. You can reach out to us at stonerspointpod@gmail.com. as it is, like we're not getting a lot of mail. So right now is the time. If you want to talk to us, this will be the time to do it. Maybe if we get super famous, well, we'll change on how we talk to people. But for right now, yeah, you can hit us up at Stones Point Pod. Give us any pointers. Thank you guys for sticking through us with all our audio issues we've had. We feel like we've found the solution, and they are getting better. Every episode we've been releasing during this little Mini-Sode series has been getting better and better each one. So we feel like we're finally getting this shit figured out, guys. So thanks for hanging in there, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Always, and we know that you got plenty of places to spend your entertainment time, and you chose this particular time with us. So thank you very much. We appreciate you much.
And our intro music is by Wickless Sky. Check him out. He's on YouTube and Spotify and all those things as well. And I guess with that, fuck around and find out.
Absolutely, folks. Bye-bye.
I didn't have to do this. I could have left. I could have fled. But no, I will no longer run. If not for me, for my children, for my brothers and sisters, the chief.